What's going on today, YouTube? Rob here. In today's video, I've got a Marincess deck profile from Legendary Duelist Duels from the Deep. Before we get into this profile though, I just want to say if you're new to the channel, consider leaving a like, consider commenting on what you might want to see next, and subscribe to the channel for more fun Yu-Gi-Oh videos. Without wasting any more of your time, let's get into it. Alright guys, let's get into this Marincess deck profile. This is as pure as I was able to make it. To what I really wanted to do. So let's start things off with triple copies of Spring Girl. This card lets you banish a Marincess monster from your graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is used as material for a link summon of a water monster, you can send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard equal to the number of Marincess monsters that you control. Then, if a Marincess card or cards was sent to the graveyard by this effect, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each Marincess card that was sent. And you can only use each effect of Spring Girl once per turn. It's a really good way to just be able to burn your opponent late game. Then we've got triple copies of Blue Tang. This is like your main starter for the deck. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can send one Marincess monster from your deck to the graveyard, except Blue Tang. And if this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a link summon of a water monster, you can excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, and if you do, you can add one excavated Marincess card to your hand. Also, shuffle the rest into your deck. You can only use each effect of Marincess Blue Tang once per turn. This is really good to be able to keep your card advantage up, and pretty much just an all-around really good starter. And then we've got triple copies of Seahorse. This card, if it's special summon, or you can special summon it from your hand to a zone that a Marincess Link monster points to. And you can only special summon Seahorse once per turn this way. During your main phase, except the turn that this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard and special summon one water monster from your hand to your zone a Marincess Link monster points to. And you can only use this effect of Seahorse once per turn. Again, really good way to be able to link climb. Then we've got triple copies of Sleepy Maiden. This card lets you target one Marincess card you control and special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, it gains this effect. While this card is in your monster zone, the targeted card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. And you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one Marincess Link monster you control, and equip it with one Marincess Link monster from your graveyard. You can only use each effect of Marincess Sleepy Maiden once per turn. Again, really good to just be able to get monsters onto the field and give yourself a little bit more protection. Then we've got triple copies of Marincess Pascalis. So if this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon one Marincess monster from your hand in defense position, except Pascalis. And during your main phase, except the turn that this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one Marincess spell or trap in your graveyard and add it to your hand. You can only use each effect of Pascalis once per turn. So this is really good in combination with your Sleepy Maiden, actually, because you can still use its effect, and it's just a good way to get a really big defense monster in Sleepy Maiden on the field. Lastly, for our Marincess monsters, we have triple copies of Basil Lolima. So if a monster or monsters you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead, and you can only use each of the following effects of Marincess Basil Lolima once per turn. So you can banish one Marincess trap from your graveyard and add a Marincess trap with a different name from your deck to your hand. And if this card is banished, you can target one face-up monster you control and it gains 600 attack. So, really good, being able to just add more cards to your hand. And then, for at least our last triples, we have triple copies of Effect Veiler. Because this is a bit more of a pure build, I'm only running these 3 hand traps. And, you know what? Not much to say about Effect Veiler. Being able to negate your opponent's effect For an anime style deck like this, as pure as it is really good, and it's an easy summon, plus it helps out with some of your link plays. You know what, if you just were to readjust the extra deck, which we'll get into later, your effect Veiler could be turned into a Link Karibo. But moving on to our 2-ofs, we have 2 copies of Silent Angler. If you control a water monster, you can special summon this card from your hand, which is really good because all your monsters are water monsters with the exception of Effect Veiler. But you cannot special summon monsters from your hand for the rest of the turn. That's okay because you can just use this to Link Climb. Or we do run 1 Bahamut Shark in the deck, so you can also do that. And lastly, we have double copies of Abyss Shark. So if this card is used as an Xyz material of a number monster, it can be treated as a level 3 or 4 monster. That doesn't matter because Bahamut Shark is not a number monster. But if all monsters you control are water minimum 1, you can special summon this card from your hand, which is awesome because, like I said, every monster in your deck, with the exception of Effect Veiler, is a water monster. And if you do, add 1 level 3, 4, or 5 fish monster from your deck to your hand except Abyss Shark. So again, the only real fish monster you're going to be adding is your Silent Angler. But that's okay as well. You can kind of thin out your deck a little bit there and pretty much just try and go into our Bahamut Shark. And then for the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon monsters except water monsters, and also double the first battle damage inflicted to your opponent this turn by your number monster battling another monster, and you can only use this effect of Abyss Shark once per turn. So that rounds off our monsters. You can kind of change things up. I think there's Marincess Fish Girl or something. I don't remember the name of the card. I couldn't find it, so I just kind of plugged that in as well. But moving on to our spells, we're only playing a total of 5. We've got triple copies of Battle Ocean and the 1 Terraforming. All Marincess monsters that you control gain 200 attack, and also each one gains 600 attack for each Marincess card equipped to it. So that's really good when you use your Sleepy Maiden to be able to equip your Marincess cards to other Marincess cards. Monsters you control in the extra monster zone that were link summoned using Crystal Heart as material are unaffected by your opponent's card effects. And when you link summon a Marincess monster to the extra monster zone, except during damage step, you can equip up to 3 Marincess link monsters with different names from your graveyard to that link summoned monster. So really great because you are getting at least 1800 attack off of the equipped monsters, plus the extra 200 that this card already gives you, plus any other sort of boost that you may or may not get from your other Marincess cards and cards you used. And then lastly, we play 1 Monster Reborn. This just helps bring back some of your bigger monsters that are in the graveyard. Moving on to the traps, we've got triple copies of Marincess Wave. If you control a Marincess Link monster, target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, negate that face-up monster's effects until the end of this turn. Then, if you control a Link 2 or higher Marincess monster, all face-up monsters you currently control are unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of this turn. If you control a Link 3 or higher Marincess monster, you can activate this card from your hand. So this is actually really good because we do play pretty much every extra deck monster is a Link monster, and they're all pretty much Marincess monsters, so this is really good just to be able to help pressure your opponent and possibly push for an OTK. Then we've got triple copies of Bubble Ring. When a monster declares an attack, negate the attack, and if you do, special summon 1 Marincess Crystal Heart from your extra deck or graveyard, and you can banish this card from your graveyard. Then target 1 Link 2 or higher Marincess monster you control. It can attack a number of times each battle phase this turn up to its Link rating. Also, your opponent takes no battle damage from attacks involving it this turn. You can only activate one Marincess Bubble Ring per turn. So the good thing about this is this helps you clear your opponent's field. The bad thing is they won't take any damage from the card that's been equipped to this. But if you do have enough resources and enough monsters on the field, that really doesn't matter. Then lastly, for our Marincess cards, we've got triple copies of Circulation. This lets you target a water link monster you control and return it to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon one Marincess link monster from your extra deck with the same link rating but a different name, but it cannot attack directly or be destroyed by battle this turn. This is treated as a link summon. If you control a link 3 or higher Marincess monster, you can activate this card from your hand. Again, this is really good. This is kind of like another hand trap, considering you can activate it from your hand as long as you control a link 3 or higher monster. And it's just really good for being able to pressure your opponent. Next up, we've got one compulsory evacuation device. Man, I can't speak. And one bottomless trap hole. Again, I would change these out for more Marincess cards if I had the room or could at least find them. But at the same time, these are also still pretty good in letting you basically ruin your opponent's normal summon as long as that card cannot be can still be targeted. And then if they summon something with more than 1500 attack, you can banish it, so it's not too bad. But you could change these out for anything else. And let's move on to the extra deck. We got triple copies of Marincess Marbled Rock. This requires 2+ water monsters, and you can target one Marincess card in your graveyard except Marbled Rock and add it to your hand. You can only use this effect of Marbled Rock once per turn. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can send one Marincess monster from your hand to the graveyard, and for that battle, monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, you take no battle damage. But this is really good because this is one of your Link 3 monsters, if not the only Link 3, but honestly, I don't mind even if it is, because you can still work around other stuff, and using some of your cards, it's not too bad. Then we've got 2 copies of Crystal Heart. This requires just 2 water monsters, and it's unaffected by your opponent's monster effects while this card is in the extra monster zone. And during the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, that opponent's monster is unaffected by card effects except its own. And when this card or your Marincess Link monster this card points to is targeted for an attack, you can send one Marincess monster from your hand to the graveyard. And for that battle, your monster cannot be destroyed by battle and you take no battle damage. Next up, we've got double copies of Coral Anemone. This requires 2 water monsters, and you can target one water monster with 1500 or less attack in your graveyard and special summon it to your zone that this card points to. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn except water monsters. And if this card is sent from field to graveyard, you can target one Marincess card in your graveyard except Coral Anemone and add it to your hand. You can only use each effect of Marincess Coral Anemone once per turn. Then we have 1 copy of Sea Angel. I'd play more, but right now I have a lot of 1-ofs in the deck that I think just suit the deck as well. So this just requires 1 level 4 or lower Marincess monster, and if this card is link summoned, you can add a Marincess spell from your deck to your hand. You can only link summon Marincess Sea Angel once per turn. This is really good because this kind of acts as another terraforming if you wanted to use it that way. So instead of just playing the 1, you're actually playing 2. Then I have Splash Mage. Again, I would probably change it out for the more pure build. Same thing with the Lina. For at least another Sea Angel. But it doesn't particularly matter because Splash Mage is actually pretty good. It requires 2 Cyberse monsters, and you can target 1 Cyberse monster in your graveyard, special summon it in defense position, but negate its effects. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except Cyberse monsters, and you can only use this effect of Splash Mage once per turn. That's not too bad because, again, all of your Marincess monsters are Cyberse monsters, and you can just special summon and link climb into your link 3s, and it's also water, so it's not too bad. And then we have one area, the Water Charmer Gentle. So this requires 2 water monsters, or 2 monsters, including a water monster. Man. This card is always treated as a familiar possessed card. You can target 1 water monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your zone this card points to, and if this link summoned card is destroyed by battle or is destroyed by an opponent's card effect while in its owner's possession, you can add 1 water monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Area the Water Charmer Gentle once per turn. Again, you can change that out for whatever you want to make this more of a pure Marincess build. But next up, we've got the 1 Link 4, which is your Aqua Argonaut. This requires 2+ water monsters, and while this card is in the extra monster zone, your opponent's monsters cannot attack any monsters except this one. And you can only use each of the following effects of Marincess Aqua Argonaut once per turn. You can target 1 water monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls, return them to the hand, and during your opponent's turn, when a spell or trap card or effect is activated on the field, quick effect, you can special summon one of your Marincess monster cards equipped to this card, and if you do, negate the activated effect. Next up, we've got 1 copy of Wonderheart. Again, you could play more, or you could play less, but for this specific build, I'm only playing it at 1. This requires 2+ water monsters. Once per battle, during damage calculation, if this card battles a monster, quick effect, you can special summon 1 of your Marincess monster cards equipped to this card. Also, this card cannot be destroyed by battle, or by that battle, and you take no battle damage from that battle. Equip that special summoned monster to this card during the end phase, and if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can special summon 1 Link 3 or lower Marincess monster from your graveyard. Next up, we've got the 1 copy of Great Bubble Reef, another Link 4. This requires 2+ water monsters, and once per turn, during each standby phase, you can banish 1 water monster from your graveyard or face up on the field and draw 1 card. Each time that a monster or monsters is banished face up, this card gains 600 attack for each until the end of this turn, and you can send 1 water monster from your hand to the graveyard and special summon 1 of your banished Marincess monsters. You can only use this effect of Great Bubble Reef once per turn. Lastly, for our links, we have the 1 Coral Triangle. This requires 2+ Marincess monsters, and you can send 1 water monster from your hand to your graveyard and add 1 Marincess trap from your deck to your hand. If your opponent controls a monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard and special summon 1 water link monster from your graveyard whose combined link ratings equal exactly 3. You can only use each effect of Marincess Coral Triangle once per turn, and you cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate either of this card's effects except water monsters. Again, that water monsters restriction doesn't matter because everything in here is a water. And lastly, we do have the 1 Bahamut Shark, like I mentioned. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card and special summon 1 rank 3 or lower water Xyz monster from your extra deck. This card cannot attack for the rest of this turn. Again, doesn't particularly matter because this is the only Xyz monster you're playing. And you typically would make this with your Silent Angler and your Abyss Shark. Still pretty good for being able to get a decent monster on the board. And yeah, that ends off this deck profile. Alright guys, that's it for this Marincess deck profile. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like. Be sure to comment on what you might want to see next. And if you're not already subscribed, subscribe to the channel for more fun Yu-Gi-Oh videos. As always, I will catch you in the next one. That's game.